It is 50 feet below the surface. Off the coast of the Bahamas, the water is clear enough to see 100 yards in every direction. Nothing is moving. No fish, no current worth speaking of. Just blue water in every direction and the faint white of sand below. Then it appears. Not fast, not aggressive. It drifts into view the way something moves when it has nothing to fear. Slow, deliberate, completely in control of every inch of space around it. 10 feet long, 400 pounds, and that head, that impossible lateral flattened head, stretching 3 feet wide, swinging left, swinging right, left again, in a slow rhythmic sweep that looks almost mechanical. It is not looking for you. It doesn't know you're there. You are not a variable in any calculation this animal is running. You are background. You are furniture. You are less interesting to this shark than the sand 12 meters below it. Everything you think you know about sharks is wrong, not slightly wrong, not off by a few details, wrong in the way that matters, wrong in the way that has made this animal one of the most persecuted, most misrepresented, most needlessly destroyed creatures in the ocean for the last 50 years. The hammerhead has survived 450 million years on this planet. It was here before the dinosaurs. It was here when the first forests were still learning to grow. It has outlasted 5 mass extinctions, watched continents drift apart, and navigated every climate catastrophe this planet has produced. And the thing that is actually threatening to end it, it isn't a predator, it isn't an asteroid, it isn't a force of nature at all. We'll get to that. First, that head. Because until you understand what that head actually does, you haven't understood anything about this animal. Here is what everyone sees when they see a hammerhead for the first time. A mistake. That is the honest reaction. That wide, flat, laterally extended head looks like something that shouldn't work. Like evolution was experimenting and forgot to clean up after itself. Every other shark is a torpedo. Streamlined, efficient, every surface shaped to reduce drag and maximize speed. And then there is the hammerhead carrying what looks like a pair of wings bolted to the front of its face. And marine biologists had this argument for decades. The hammerhead's head, called the cephalofoil, generated real scientific disagreement about its primary function. Some argued it was hydrodynamic, some argued it was about eye placement, some argued it was for maneuverability. The debate went on longer than you'd expect for a question about a fish. Here is what the evidence eventually made clear. It is all of those things simultaneously, and the combination produces something no other predator in the ocean can match. Start with the eyes. A hammerhead's eyes sit at the extreme ends of that wide head, giving it a field of vision that covers nearly 360 degrees simultaneously. It can see directly above and directly below at the same time. It has almost no blind spots. A great white shark, by comparison, has a significant blind spot directly in front of its snout, the area it attacks from. The hammerhead has full visual coverage of essentially its entire environment at all times. But the eyes are not even the most important part of what that head does. Every living creature produces an electrical field, not metaphorically, literally. The firing of neurons, the beating of a heart, the contraction of a single muscle fiber, all of these generate tiny electrical signals that radiate outward into the surrounding water. In air, these signals dissipate almost instantly and are essentially undetectable. In salt water, which conducts electricity far more efficiently, they travel. Sharks can detect them. The mechanism is called the ampullae of Lorenzini. Thousands of microscopic pores distributed across the head, each one connected to a fluid-filled canal that terminates in a sensory cell capable of detecting changes in electrical potential. The system is so sensitive that sharks can detect electrical fields as weak as 1 billionth of a volt per centimeter. To put that in context, the electrical field produced by a human heart beating at rest is roughly 1,000,000 times stronger than the minimum the ampullae of Lorenzini can detect. A shark does not need to be near you to feel your heartbeat. It needs to be in the same general body of water. Now, take that sensory system and instead of concentrating it in a narrow snout the way every other shark does, spread it across 3 feet of lateral surface. That is what the hammerhead cephalofoil does. The detection area multiplies, the resolution of the electrical map increases, and because the head sweeps from side to side as the shark swims, that slow, rhythmic, mechanical motion that looks so strange from above, it is actively scanning, covering ground, building a 3-dimensional picture of every electrical source in the surrounding water with a precision that no other shark, no other predator, no other animal in the ocean can approach. A hammerhead can find a stingray buried completely under sand, invisible, motionless, not moving a single muscle, and locate it precisely, not approximately, precisely by the electrical field its heart is producing 6 inches below the surface. The head is not a design error. The head is the entire point. But here is where the story gets stranger, because the hammerhead is not just electrically sensitive, it is also magnetically aware. The same magnetite crystals found in the leatherback sea turtle, in migratory birds and salmon returning to their nettle streams, they are present in sharks. The hammerhead uses the Earth's magnetic field as a navigation system, detecting variations in magnetic intensity and inclination to determine position and direction across open ocean with an accuracy that has genuinely surprised researchers. This is how hammerhead sharks, which are highly migratory, manage to travel the same routes year after year with almost no variation. They are not following currents, they are not following prey, they are reading a magnetic map embedded in the planet itself, cross-referencing it in real time against the electrical landscape of the water around them, and navigating with a precision that makes GPS feel approximate. And they do this with a brain that, relative to body size, is among the largest of any shark species. The hammerhead is not running on instinct. It is not a simple machine pointed at the nearest source of food. It is a highly sophisticated sensory and navigational system that has been refined over hundreds of millions of years into something we are only beginning to understand. This is the animal Jaws taught you to be afraid of. Let's talk about that. In 1975, a movie changed how an entire civilization related to an entire class of animals. Before Jaws, sharks were poorly understood and largely ignored by the general public. After Jaws, they became monsters. The film was so effective, so viscerally terrifying, so well constructed as a piece of cinema that it produced a genuine cultural shift. Shark fishing increased dramatically in the years following its release. Beaches posted warnings. Parents told children to stay out of the water. The image of the shark as an apex predator, actively hunting humans, became embedded in popular consciousness with a thoroughness that 50 years of scientific correction has barely dented. Here is what the science actually says. In an average year, sharks attack between 70 and 100 people worldwide. Of those, roughly 5 to 10 are fatal globally in a year across every ocean, every coastline, every beach, every diver, every surfer, every swimmer on the planet. You are more likely to be killed by a vending machine falling on you than by a shark. You are more likely to be struck by lightning twice than to be fatally attacked by a shark. You are more likely to die from a bee sting, a dog bite, a coconut falling from a tree, or a collision with a deer on a highway than from any interaction with any shark species. And the hammerhead, in recorded history, there have been a handful of unprovoked hammerhead attacks on humans, none fatal. In the entire documented history of human-shark interaction, No hammerhead has ever killed a person. What the hammerhead actually eats is stingrays. Almost exclusively, its jaw is positioned further back on the cephalofoil, specifically to allow it to pin a ray to the seafloor before eating it. Researchers have found hammerheads with dozens of stingray spines embedded in their mouths, their throats, even their stomachs, spines that have been there long enough to become fully encapsulated by healed tissue, the shark's immune system simply walling them off and continuing. Catching stingrays involves getting stung by stingrays. The hammerhead has been getting stung by stingrays for 450 million years, and it has decided at some evolutionary level that this is simply the cost of doing business. The monster of jaws eats stingrays and doesn't notice the spines. 450 million years, let that number sit for a moment, because the human brain is not built to process geological time intuitively, and without processing it, you cannot understand what this animal actually is. 450 million years ago, there were no land vertebrates, none. The first fish with legs were still hundreds of millions of years away. The continents were arranged in configurations that would be completely unrecognizable to you. The dominant life forms on Earth were marine invertebrates and early fish. The first forest would not exist for another 50 million years. Sharks were already there, not ancestors of sharks, not early prototypes, recognizable sharks with recognizable body plans, hunting in recognizable ways in an ocean that was already, in important ways, theirs. The first mass extinction they survived was the late Devonian extinction, roughly 375 million years ago, which killed approximately 75% of all species on Earth. Sharks survived it. The second was the Permian extinction, 252 million years ago, the most severe extinction event in planetary history, which killed more than 90% of all marine species. Sharks survived it. The third, fourth, and fifth mass extinctions followed across the next 200 million years. Sharks survived all of them. The asteroid that ended the non-avian dinosaurs 66 million years ago, the one that struck with the force of 10 billion nuclear weapons, that threw enough debris into the atmosphere to block sunlight for years, that killed 3/4 of all species on Earth in what geologists estimate was a matter of weeks. Sharks were already ancient when it hit. They had been ancient for nearly 400 million years, and they swam through it. What does it take to survive 450 million years? What kind of design, what kind of biology, what kind of fundamental rightness about an organism allows it to outlast literally everything else that has ever existed on this planet? The answer in the hammerhead's case is precision, not size, not aggression, not the ability to kill anything that moves. Precision, a body and a sensory system so perfectly calibrated to its environment, its prey, its ocean, that no extinction event, no climate catastrophe, no rearrangement of continents and currents has been able to make it obsolete. It found a strategy that worked, and it executed that strategy with such completeness that 450 million years of planetary history could not improve on it. Hammerheads are social in ways most sharks are not. During the day, particularly along seamounts and underwater ridges in warm tropical waters, hammerheads gather in schools, not pairs, not small groups, schools of hundreds, sometimes thousands, dense, swirling aggregations of apex predators moving together in patterns that researchers have spent years trying to fully understand. Why? This is the question that took decades to answer, and the answer, when it came, was not what anyone expected. The seamounts and ridges where these schools form are characterized by specific magnetic anomalies, places where the Earth's magnetic field is locally distorted by the geology below. The hammerheads are not gathering to hunt, they are not gathering for protection, they are gathering at magnetic landmarks, using specific features of the planetary magnetic field, the way you might use a street corner or a transit station as a reference point, a waypoint, a place to orient before continuing a longer journey. The school is a navigation event. At night, the schools disperse. Individual sharks move outward into open water to hunt, traveling miles from the sea mount and returning by dawn. Researchers tracking individual animals have documented these nightly journeys with a consistency and precision that confirms the sea mount is not just a gathering place, but a fixed navigational anchor, a point these animals return to with the same regularity and accuracy that migratory birds return to the same tree in the same forest after crossing a continent. The hammerhead is not a solitary ambush predator. It is a social, migratory, magnetically navigating, electrically sensing precision hunter that gathers in its thousands at specific coordinates on the Earth's magnetic map. This is what we almost destroyed before we understood it. Here's a number that should stop you. 80%. In some hammerhead populations, numbers have declined by more than 80% in the last 50 years, not over geological time, not across a mass extinction event. In 50 years, in a single human lifetime, the great hammerhead, the largest species reaching up to 20 feet in length, is now classified as critically endangered. The scalloped hammerhead, which forms those enormous schools at seamounts across the tropics, is endangered. The smooth hammerhead is vulnerable. Every major hammerhead species is in significant decline. How? The same animal that survived 5 mass extinctions, that swam through the asteroid that ended the dinosaurs, that has been refining its biology for longer than complex land life, has existed. How is it losing to us? 2 reasons, and they are connected. The first is targeted fishing. Hammerhead fins are among the most valuable in the shark fin trade. A single set of hammerhead fins can sell for thousands of dollars in markets across Asia, where shark fin soup is a status dish served at weddings, at business dinners, at celebrations, where the expense of the ingredients is part of the point. The fins are removed at sea, often from living animals, and the body, 95% of the shark's mass, is thrown back into the water. The shark sinks. The fins are sold. The scale of this trade is difficult to comprehend. Estimates suggest between 70 and 100 million sharks are killed every year for their fins. 70 to 100 million every year. The second reason the hammerhead is losing is reproduction. It is a slow animal in the biological sense, not in movement, but in recovery. Hammerheads reach sexual maturity between 6 and 10 years old. They give birth to live pups between 6 and 40 per litter, depending on species, after a gestation period of 9 to 12 months. They do not breed every year. A population that took millions of years to stabilize at its natural size cannot absorb the losses the fin trade is inflicting and rebuild itself on a human time scale. The math does not work, and the math has been not working for 50 years. There is one more thing about the hammerhead that most people never hear, and it is, in some ways, the most remarkable thing of all. Female hammerhead sharks can reproduce without males. Parthenogenesis, asexual reproduction, has been documented in multiple shark species, but the cases in hammerheads were among the first confirmed in a wild population of large sharks, and they raise questions that science is still working through. In captive female hammerheads that had been isolated from males for years, pups were born. Genetic testing confirmed the pups carried only maternal DNA. No paternal contribution, no fertilization in the conventional sense. The mechanism is not fully understood. What it suggests is that under conditions of extreme stress, population collapse, isolation, the inability to find mates, at least some hammerhead females retain the biological capacity to reproduce without them. Whether this is enough to save a population under the pressure the fin trade is applying is a separate question. The pups produced through parthenogenesis are genetically limited. They carry only half the genetic diversity of sexually reproduced offspring, making them more vulnerable to disease and environmental change. It is a last resort, not a solution, but it is a signal of something, of an animal that has been finding ways to survive for so long that even its reproduction carries contingency plans. 450 million years of evolution does not produce fragility. It produces options. If you've made it this far, you already know more about hammerheads than most people will learn in a lifetime. And if this kind of content is what you're looking for, the real story behind the animals we think we understand, then consider subscribing. I put out a new video every week, and every one of them goes this deep. One click, and you won't miss the next one. So here is what you're actually looking at when you see a hammerhead. You're looking at 450 million years of unbroken survival. You're looking at the most sophisticated electromagnetic sensory system ever evolved in a living animal. You're looking at a social, migratory, magnetically navigating predator that gathers in its thousands at specific coordinates on the planetary magnetic field, disperses to hunt with precision no other shark can match, and returns to the same sea mount before dawn. You are looking at an animal that survived everything this planet has thrown at complex life. Every extinction, every catastrophe, every rearrangement of the physical world. And you are looking at an animal that is losing for the first time in 450 million years to a bowl of soup. The hammerhead is not the monster in this story. It never was. We put that label on it because it was easier than understanding it, because fear is simpler than knowledge, because Jaws was a better movie than a documentary would have been, but the label was always wrong. And the cost of keeping it is becoming clear in declining populations, in empty sea mounts, in the slow disappearance of something that took nearly 500 million years to build and that we are dismantling in decades. The hammerhead doesn't know any of this. It doesn't know that it's endangered. It doesn't know what a fin trade is. It doesn't know that the animal responsible for its decline is the same animal now writing papers about how to save it. It knows the magnetic signature of the seamount. It knows the electrical field of a stingray buried in sand. It knows the route it has been swimming since before our species existed. It is doing exactly what it was built to do. The question is whether we will let it keep doing it long enough to survive us the way it survived everything else.